Well, I'm Pumpkin, pleased to have you with me today. Welcome to Food Literacy Center's cooking demonstration. Today we are going to be making a delicious pumpkin pasta sauce. And we are playing with pumpkins because they are in season right now and there are so many fun varieties that, like, here's one of my pumpkins, but check this one out. Have you ever seen a pumpkin that looked like this? They're so delicious, so tasty, that we're making all kinds of things with pumpkin right now. So let's get out our pumpkins and our aprons and let's begin to cook. So we are cooking on induction heat. So this is electric heat, and we've got a warm pan. I already started it. This is such a simple recipe and it tastes so good. So I'm gonna start with a hot pan, about medium high. Whoop. I'm gonna add my olive oil. You can find this recipe and follow along with me at foodliteracycenter.org/recipes. So the first thing we're gonna do is add, I've already diced an onion, and I diced it into basically a little bit smaller than bite-sized chunks. So we're gonna add that to our warm pan, and you can test to see if your pan is hot enough by dropping one in. You hear that sizzle? That means it's ready to go. Ooh, yummy. Now we're also cooking with our noses and our ears. We're keeping that heat about medium high. We're gonna stir these just a little bit, but we're mostly gonna let them sit there so they can begin to brown and turn translucent. And one of the things that I love about pumpkins, again, not just the many varieties that we have, but pumpkins are so fun because they are packed with things that are healthy for us. The big thing that pumpkins have that they share in common with carrots is vitamin A. And vitamin A is a nutrient which helps our eyes to see. And you know there's vitamin A because of that beautiful orange color, just like carrots have, right? So another fun fact about pumpkin is that it is not a vegetable, it's a fruit. And the way we know that is that when you cut a pumpkin open, and we could try cutting this one open, when you cut a pumpkin open, there are seeds inside. Oh, it's a little bit bright, but you can see, there we go, you can see those seeds. And that's how we know it's a fruit. That is botanically a fruit. All foods, all plants I should say, that are edible, so plants that we eat, are also considered vegetables. So even my apple would be considered a plant that we eat, so it's both a fruit and a vegetable. But in the kitchen, we use apples like a fruit, and we use pumpkins sometimes like a vegetable, but they have seeds, so they're also botanically a fruit, just to keep it confusing. So my onions are basically cooking down, and I want them to get a little bit brown. I want them to begin to turn translucent. That's a big word. That means they get a little bit clear. We can kind of start to see through them and not so thick. And you can use a red onion like I use. You can use yellow, white, doesn't matter. Whatever onion makes you happy. The reason we start with onion is that it gets all kinds of delicious flavor packed into the layers of flavor that we're gonna add to our sauce. Onions are also a tricky plant part. They can be considered a root because they grow underground, but technically they are the stem of the plant. Pretty cool, huh? So, as our onions cook, let's go over the rest of the ingredients. So, we're basically making the most simple sauce. I've already cooked my noodles, which those are on our recipe. Again, at foodliteracycenter.org/recipes. And mostly we're gonna be adding things. So we're gonna add oregano. I'm also gonna cut our recipe in half. So that is some good math that we're gonna be doing. So instead of 2 onions, I used, how many is half of 2? I used 1. And now I'm gonna also add our oregano. It asked for a 1/4 cup, but because I'm using half, this one's kind of a fun math trick in the kitchen. So 2 tablespoons is half of a 1/4 cup. So I'm gonna take my tablespoon, I grew oregano in my garden, and I'm gonna, as I add it to my measuring spoon, I'm gonna sort of pinch it because I have these leaves that are pretty whole. So I'm gonna measure out 1 tablespoon. I'm gonna drop it in my hand and pinch it some more. And I'm gonna add this right to my onion. It will start to flavor. That's the next level of flavor we're adding. It's gonna start to flavor my onion. So that's 1 tablespoon. And now 2 tablespoons. And if we were making the full batch, we would use 2 more tablespoons. And the reason I am making half is that this recipe makes a really big batch. So if you were feeding a big family, this is the perfect size recipe. I am feeding a small family, so I'm gonna cook half of it. Ooh, now I'm smelling both onion and oregano, which is what you want. And my onions are just beginning to cook down and become translucent, just a little bit. Now the next thing in our recipe is nutmeg. I'm gonna wait and add that because I don't want it to burn. And we'll talk about the nutmeg when I add it, but I am gonna add a bit of black pepper. It's another nice dry herb that can go in my dry pan right now. I'm gonna put plenty because I like it a little with a little kick. You like it with less kick, put less black pepper. Stir it up just a little. We're getting really close to be able to add our other ingredients. So now, we also need to add our pumpkin. And this one calls for 7 cups. So what's half of 7? So half of 7 is 3 1/2. So that's what we're gonna add right now. And we're gonna use a measuring cup. And I'm gonna use a spatula, and I have my pumpkin right here, so you can help me measure 1 cup, and when we're measuring sort of a wet or dry ingredient, we scrape it even with the top of the measuring cup. So we've got 1, I'm adding it because my onions are translucent, and that's what we're looking for. And they're a little bit browned. 1 cup, 2 cups. And you can use canned pumpkin, or you can roast a pumpkin like this in the oven and then mash all the pulp with a spoon. Now we have 3 cups, and then we need half more. There we go, and I used my half cup for our half. All right, and I only have the tiniest bit left, so I don't even have a half a cup left, so I'm gonna put that in there. Because it's a sauce, you can add a little bit extra, it's okay. We'll make up for that later. We'll show you when we add our water. So now we're gonna stir together our onions and our pumpkin, and you're already starting to get new smells, which means new levels of flavor. Now you'll see this is quite thick, and as we add our other ingredients, this is gonna change. So now we want to add sour cream. So 16 ounces of sour cream there's 8 ounces in 1 cup. So we are going to add 1 cup because we're making half the recipe. So I'm going to get my cup back out. We're going to measure. Use this clean spatula. We're going to measure 1 cup of sour cream. And this is going to give it a creamy, rich color and flavor, because we want a creamy, nice creamy sauce. Okay, so we added a cup of sour cream. Gonna stir all that together. And it's still, I still have my pan on about a medium. And we're just stirring all this in. My pumpkin was cold, my sour cream was cold, and that's fine, because right now we just want it to sort of simmer on a lower temperature. And look how the color's changing too. It looks so pretty. Then we want to cut our Parmesan in half. It calls for a cup. So how much are we gonna use? Not 1 cup, but half a cup. So I'm gonna get my half cup measuring. And I have my Parmesan cheese. And I'm gonna measure out half a cup. So this is gonna add salt. This is gonna add also more of that sort of dairy flavor, that cheesy, nutty flavor that goes so well with pumpkin. So in goes my Parmesan, and I'll stir all that up. We can also now add our nutmeg. So this is real cool. I have a real nutmeg right here. This is a little seed, and you might recognize nutmeg from eggnog. It's a popular spice that gives eggnog its unique flavor, and we're going to take a microplane grater. You can use a box grater, but you really do for something like a nutmeg. If you don't have it ground, you can buy ground nutmeg, but this microplane grater is the best tool. And so hopefully you can see the nutmeg as I grate it. I don't know if you can even see it begin to fall. It's like, it's lighter than snow. And so we're gonna put not too much. You don't want your pumpkin pasta to taste like eggnog. You just wanna get enough in there for a little bit of a, kind of a spicy note on the very back of your tongue when you eat this dish. It goes really good with the pumpkin and with the dairy in here. Oh, it smells amazing, you guys. All the flavors have already begun to blend together. It smells so good. So now we have a sauce that's actually pretty thick. Hopefully you can see, you know, it's not very liquid sauce. And so what we want to do is we actually want to add some water to our sauce to make it a bit thinner. You could use vegetable stock, you could use chicken stock, but you don't have to, because this already has quite a lot of flavor and we're just thinning it. It's not the main base of this sauce, so it's okay to use plain water, and cheaper too. So we're gonna take about a half cup. I like these jars that have the measurement right on the side. So I've measured 8 ounces or 1 cup of water, and I don't think I need that much, so I'm just gonna start with a splash. And then stir it in and see, I want more, I want my sauce thinner, and if, you know, that's the neat thing about this, you can make the sauce as thick or as thin as you please, whatever makes you happy. Now, if you have a fancy tool called an immersion blender, that's when you would take the immersion blender right about now, as you've added your water, and you would stir it, basically break down all the onion in this, and you would end up with a very smooth, creamy sauce with no chunks of onion. But the only reason to do that is it's just prettier, but it doesn't change the flavor, it just changes the texture. So this is the time when you would get out that immersion blender and just give this a good, I'm gonna make this just a bit thinner, still not quite saucy enough for me. So even though I'm only making a half batch, I am using almost my whole cup of water so far. And what's really delicious about this is you will end up getting this thick sauce that just coats your pasta noodles. And mine looks about as saucy as I would like it. So it's, you know, still pretty thick, but it's definitely saucier than it was before. Maybe a little more water. You are going to want to add salt to this. The cheese and the sour cream have salt, but I like to add just a bit more salt because that pumpkin can be a little sweet, and we just want to, and always taste before you do salt, because you just want to make sure that you're not adding too much or too little. So always taste first. And right now, the pumpkin is a bit sweet, so by adding salt, and I just do a pinch at a time, so by adding salt, it's just going to be a slightly bit more savory. It's going to help bring out the flavor of that oregano and that onion. Taste again, the clean. Perfect. Oh, that is so good. A little pinch of salt goes a very long way. And it's all we needed. And it took it from tasting a bit sweet to tasting almost cheesy. It's so good. So now we have our cooked noodles. I like to use a spiral noodle because I find that the sauce starts to cling to all the little crevices, so I get more sauce on my noodle. So that's the type of noodle I'm going to use today, is this spiral noodle. I'm going to add it to my pot and stir it all up. And this, you guys, is one of the most delicious pasta sauces that you can make. It's a perfect side dish for Thanksgiving. It's an amazing fall, wintertime, cozy, warm, good for you, so healthy. I also use whole wheat noodles. I always cook with whole grain noodles. I like them. I think they're nice and chewy, and I like the texture. I like the flavor, and they have fiber, which is very good for our bodies, and we need fiber. So I always go with that type of noodle. Now I get to taste it, guys. That's how easy this recipe is. So we've got, doesn't that look amazing? Oh, it's such a beautiful color, and it's such an amazing texture. I'm using my measuring spoon. This is my tasting spoon. It tastes like pumpkin and onion and oregano. It tastes so good, you guys. It's like a big bite of fall. I hope that you will follow along at foodliteracycenter.org/recipes and cook along with us. We do a Food Literacy Friday every single Friday. Next week we're going to be doing Wednesday, and you can also click that orange donate button to support our programs so that we can teach kids to fall in love with vegetables throughout the Sacramento area. Thank you, and have a pumpkin pleasant day.